That's awesome. That's super cool. That's like you're the first person in my design community that's done something like with like museums and the children element and like connecting physical with digital. So that's super cool. So you had that role as like, leading, I guess like design and product integration at the museum. Then what did you do after that?
Yeah, so after that, there was another gentleman that I was working with, so on a freelance basis, and he was wanting to launch a startup. So he kind of lured me away with promises of, hey, let's do this really cool software. Let's build this package that's going to talk to, it was for dealerships, for car dealerships or something. And so I helped to put together the interface for it, worked with another friend of mine that developed the back end on it, and we launched this software package. And it started off really, really good, but then that is when I learned that I am not an entrepreneur, and I have no business starting a company. I know nothing about financials. And so, just bad business decisions made by this particular person. And that was the other thing I found as well. There are folks who know how to start a company, and there are folks that know how to run a company. Very rarely are they the same,
What was like the biggest learning from like going down that entrepreneurial path? Obviously, like the confidence to do that, I always admire, right? Because you're kind of like, I have this thing that's somewhat safe that I'm getting more comfortable with. And then you're just like left turn, jump into something totally new, not fully sure it's going to work out. So like, I mean, you're saying you're not entrepreneurial, but like everything you've said to me so far is like you're a self-starter. You like when new opportunities and ideas come up. So I'd love to say like, if you had to do that opportunity again, was there anything you'd do different, or would you probably just say like, no, it really wasn't what I was looking for?
Yeah, I learned the value of a contract. Let's just put it that way. None of us had contracts. None of us had agreements. And so when things went south, since the person holding all the cards had all the cards, he just kind of went and then left the rest of us kind of, dangling in the air.
That is a tough but very, very powerful lesson. So that's actually great. That gets stuff in writing.
It's huge. As designers, I think there's two things that we hate talking about. We hate talking about money, and finances, and we hate talking about contracts. It's like, just let me get into the head of the consumer, let me design, let me be creative, and then, someone wants to pump the brakes on you and go, oh, I want you to, consider this contract, and let's look through all the legalese of that. And, unfortunately, that's just the reality of some of the things we do in business, which is, you got to sit down and go, okay, let's look at the boring stuff.
But you know what's funny is that I couldn't agree more. I think it's just like people just don't like talking about it. But Chris Do, who runs the Future, his podcast, they kind of started to really unpack this and debunk this stuff and like air out like when he was starting an agency or when he was freelance, how to charge clients, how to have that contractual obligation, how to say no to clients, how to make sure that you're getting what you're worth, because designers are constantly undercutting themselves, especially when they're more junior. Also explaining the design process and how it's not just like you hop into a design application for a couple of hours and then you send it over to your client. Like, basically there's a lot of the design community for design in a lot of ways is just being an effective communicator. But sometimes we miss the part where we need to educate people on the process. So that's like my number one thing that I like love hearing about is like the process. So thank you for listening to today's episode of Design Huddle. The opinions expressed are solely our own and do not express the views or opinions of our employer.